All right, there we go. Hi, everybody. Let everybody get on for a second. Okay. I hope there's not too much of an echo. I'm in an office, but it's like one of the big ones. So I'm all by myself.
So
Hope
Kate,
it's
this is Marcia McShane from Cape Cod. I was on your, what do we call this? I don't know. Your webinar, I
hanging out.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah, webinar.
Last week, and I actually used the collections for comps, which made my people really go where they should have gone. So I'm doing it again
Good.
today, just to kind of
Good,
refresh, but it really did work. So thank you so much.
Good. I'm so happy to hear that. Yeah, I switched over to this probably like 2 years ago. Once I fell in love with collections for buyers, and I'm like, okay, I need to use this in more ways than just this one way. So, and I really hated and I'll go over kind of my whole thing. I think enough people are on here. I don't mind the print book that they give us. Sometimes that's right for that client. Obviously, if some of you don't know, I'm on a mother-daughter team. My mom's been in the business for 20 plus years. There's something to be said for having a little bit of material in person for a client where that's meeting them kind of more where they're at. And then maybe following up in your email with a collection showing the exact same data, because sometimes online it's a little bit easier to look at the map, look through more pictures. Obviously, you're not going to print, 7 listings with 36 photos from each one of those. So I think there's something to be said for both of them. That's a question I get right off the bat is, okay, why do I actually do this with collections versus just keeping it simple? So that's kind of how it all started for me. So I'm going to kind of walk everybody through today how to make a collection. It's the same way you make a normal collection. But how you actually do it instead of active listings and coming soon listings, how you do that for pending, sold. It could also be something that is active. If it's a data point you're trying to show, whatever picture you're trying to paint, you can do this way. But it is much easier for me to have, either you could do it on a computer, you could do it on an iPad, doesn't really matter to me, or whatever you're comfortable with. But I also get this a lot from maybe agents who have not been in the business for that long, and maybe you're a little bit more anxious on a pitch or forgetting your material. So these I kind of think of like a cheat sheet to have on here. You don't need to memorize. I mean, if you can, that's great, but every price per square foot or everything about the house, or sometimes you just kind of wander. If anyone, I can probably just like a show of hands if you've ever wandered on a listing pitch and you're like, Kate, let's land the plane over here. Where are you going with this? These notes that I put into the collection, aka the comments, are really helpful for me staying on pace with what I'm trying to get across, if that makes sense. Just by a show of hands, or you can put in the chat, who has tried this before using your collection for comps? Okay.
I'm working doing it for a seller right now and for a buyer. So I was just curious with the seller, if you start with save search. I mean, I've been hesitant to just go to collection because I don't fully know if I'm going to end up sending it prematurely. I want to kind of think about it. And the other thing I don't know how to do is change a name on the collection once you put someone's name. How to change that.
Go back. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I can help you out with both of those. So I'm going to actually touch on your first question now, and it'll make more sense when I'm doing the live demo. But sometimes I think when I'm moving on the screen, people are like half listening. So basically when I set up my collections, and I'll be doing another video or whatever, webinar, whatever we're calling these, Margie, on here. So I'll be showing how I set these up for buyers. But if you've ever gone to any of my sessions in the past, I embed a save search within my collection. That sounds like a lot of words. All that's doing is that's how you move from having a static collection, so something that's not going to update when new listings come on, over to something that is going to have like an MLS, whatever, there's like IDX feeds, like it's basically embedding that into the collection. So to your point in your question of why I would do this as a save search is because hopefully I'm going to win the listing. And what this can do afterwards is now I can keep them in here. And if maybe they didn't want to list at the price that I recommended, in a few weeks, they can also be watching the market and say, I have a perfect example right now. I'm listing a house tomorrow. We recommended we list it at like 700 or 710 at the most. they were like, okay, well, we really need to get this. We put so much in, blah, blah, whatever. And I love these clients. So they weren't too combative with it. But I said, okay, fine. I don't know who's above us, but a listing down the street that's 1,000 square feet more, like 900 square feet more, went on for $729. Okay, this was a really helpful data point for me to have in their collection going up, and having that conversation starter coming from someone that's not me. We're all getting the information at the same side at the same time. And it's a pretty obvious thing that maybe that price is a little off. Maybe Kate and Corinne were right, or maybe even they put it a little too high. So what I said to them is, why don't we watch this listing? Why don't we watch what happens over the weekend? I think this was priced really aggressively. And sure enough, that house is going to be getting, I think, close to 800 or 785, something like that. So now we were able to have a very collaborative conversation in person or whatever, but all kind of based out of this collection, this save search, so you will, in there. This is a perfect example of it working, but it's a way for us to really collaborate and show them the information versus always telling them the information. Of course, we want to recommend a competitive price so it goes quickly in their eyes. Also, we just want to do a good job for them. That's why we're recommending the prices that we are. But sometimes it's not what we're saying, but it's either how we're getting them to that point or not getting them to that point, that I think can cause a lot of friction in these conversations. And I have worked really, really hard at these conversations so that they don't lead to this combative kind of combo. So with that being said, any other questions specifically on collections or the comps that I put in them? Let me check the chat too, sorry. Okay, let's get moving then. All right, I'm gonna pull up Agent Home, share my screen. Just like one person give me a thumbs up, you guys can see this. We're all good? Great, okay. Margie, you're my girl today because I only have your square underneath me, so I'm watching you. Okay, so just like with any collection, this is Compass Home. I start in search. This is how you start a saved search. I am going to do the listing I'm talking about. Why don't we do that? So from here, I have this set to mimic what our MLS looks like. If yours doesn't look like this, either maybe it's not in your region, but I think that's rolled out everywhere now. It might look like this, which are the Compass filters. So if you ever want to kind of toggle between both, that's how you do it. You go into preferences, and then my MLS is called HGAR. I always keep it on the MLS because that's what I'm so used to using all day long that it's easier just for me. My hand just moves where it needs to go. So from here, I would go in and I do, now you're basically just pulling comps, so to speak. So I would probably not put the price personally. I'd kind of start to narrow it down in a different way. I'm going to click coming soon active because I want to know who our competitors are right now, pending, and sold. I don't know about you guys. I've been having to go back a little bit further than those 6 months just to really grab a little bit more that's going to tell the story, especially in a time like February, because it's not, I mean, I'm in New York, so most people don't list in November or around the holidays if they don't have to. So I like to go back a little bit further. So I'm going to go back 360 days just to see, because at this point, the rates have been higher now for almost a year. I'm going to do a single family. We are very school district oriented, so I'm going to sort by school district. Sometimes I'll also sort it by the elementary school because that will give me, by default, that will really narrow in my radius. If you are not school district oriented and you want to draw a radius, you would just go to list and map right here. All of this is pulling out the zone for Bedford School District. That's why it started to narrow in. And you could do a draw freehand and draw it maybe right around the house, whatever you wanted to do. I don't do that because school districts get me to where I need to be. All right, let's go back into show criteria. I'm gonna not really worry about the bedrooms or the baths. You can, just for this specific one. We really didn't have a ton of results, so I'm just gonna go in for square footage. This is a smaller house. It's like 1,600 square feet. So I'm just gonna do anything that's like 2,000 and below. And again, you guys know, if you don't know how to pull the comps on here, I know everyone knows how to pull comps. If you don't know how to pull them on here, I would really highly recommend putting this into the MLS version so that you're used to, it's mimicking what you're already used to doing. Okay, so this is enough for me to kind of go in and narrow in from here. I'm seeing 65. That's, I mean, I know this inventory very well, so it's easy for me to narrow it down. I'm gonna go ahead in and limit it down to the elementary schools that are very close. That are very close. Let's just do Bedford Hills. This is gonna give me like my closest comps here. If you want to check that it's pulling things, you can click on something the wrong way. I usually go into this card view, make sure everything's looking good. I'm saying yes, okay. This is pulling what I want it to pull. And then I go into save search, which is right here. Save as a collection for your clients. And now I'll set up the collection, but just from here, any questions? And if you unmute yourself, it's a little easier than the chat.
So let's say there's items and you want to trash them. Will they have visibility to the trashed items, or would you just delete them out, or what do you recommend?
I'm right there. You're one
Okay.
step ahead of me, and then I'll get you there.
Sorry.
All right.
Yeah.
Everyone else is good just up to this point?
Yeah.
Great. The best. Easy. Makes my job very easy. I'm going to use Corinne, who's my mom, but let's pretend like she's the seller. She's attached to some random folder, but this should go into your client. And then here, I wouldn't do your home hunt, which is like the default. I would say 81 Crescent Terrace. So the address of the house, CMA. You could also write out comparative market analysis, whatever you want to do. Joyce, to your question, this is one that you want to pay attention to, your alert schedule. So the difference between automatically sharing and reviewing new listings before is basically that you're allowing yourself to be the filter before anything that populates according to the criteria that you have this save search set up as, that you have to say, let me take one more look at it, because even though on paper this makes sense, my client's going to be really confused if I tell them that this is a comp for their house, and probably really offended. Again, we've all probably been there. So you want to make sure that you're doing review new listings. To me, this is for any collection, specifically for a CMA. Do not, and I never really say, I always say like, this is what I feel. I'm telling you, do not do automatic, because you're going to get yourself, you're going to be trying to do a great thing and end up with your foot in your mouth with someone saying to you, how dare you think that that's a comp for my house? Or maybe someone's nicer and they'll say it in a nicer way, but that's what they mean. Here, I usually just keep this all the same. If you want to have it update them immediately, hourly, daily, whatever you want to do. You're not going to be putting more than 7 or 8 listings in here for the sake of this exercise. So it doesn't really matter if they're getting this immediately. If you're making a collection for a buyer, maybe you want to drop that down to like daily so that they're not getting like listing. Okay, great. So from here, I'm going to go and create collection. Okay. So Joyce, again, this is the difference. Had I have just done automatically share, I wouldn't have this unshared tab here. So right now, if the client were in this, which I'm going to just touch on this now, they're not right now. Even though I put it underneath their folder, they're not in it yet. So don't feel like, oh my God, I have to get all the listings in there, make it look perfect. The invite was just sent to them. You still have to invite them to this. You're just getting it set up. So if you started this in the morning and you don't want to send it until a few days later, no problem. You're just in the getting it started phase. This is like a rough draft. So from here, I would go through and say, and I'm just randomly doing this. Yes, this is a comp. Yes, this is a comp, whatever. Go through and look through them. Definitely not a comp, whatever you want to do. pick your 7 out of the 13, or I'm just literally going to pick random ones right now. Okay. I just grabbed 5 amazing comps. Now, just to keep this clean, I'm going to go through and delete the rest so that the next time I go into this collection, let's say the client signs with me, this is for the sake of a pitch or listing presentation, but now I can keep this really organized so that I can keep the client, aka now my seller, in this, so they can also stay updated on what comps are coming on the market. Make sense? Okay.
Kate, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
When you keep your sellers in this after you've done the initial part, do you still review them first before they go, or do you then make them automatically go?
I still review them.
You do. God bless you.
And you know why? Because I maybe have just had some really abusive clients in the past, like we all probably have, who have like ingrained in my head, shame on me for trying to set you up in something that's just going to be, that's just going to be, you know, like this constant feed. I'm just trying to show you what's going on in the market, because you have to, but then I think of it from a cynical perspective. So the client is getting this email that says Kate Bauer just added something new to the collection. Whether you added it or not, and it filtered through you, that's what Compass is saying. So they're going to think, and they're going to read that as Kate thinks this is a comp for my house. And it could be a teardown down the street that's just on a nice lot, which is why it ends up being the same price as his house or her house. So that's why I always want to make sure I'm reviewing and handpicking. And this probably goes down to like some deep-rooted control issues that I have as well over my business, but I like to just make sure that everything the client is getting filters through me first. Make sure we're all on the same page. All right. Because I also think of this like you're telling a story. So I want to make sure that I'm having control over that narrative, because one slip up and you lose that trust, or you kind of lose your credibility. The next one that is that great comp that could have gotten you the price reduction doesn't mean as much. So.
Got it.
If I haven't hammered it enough, review and handpick is.
No, you learn something new every day.
Yeah. Okay. So now we go over, so I've just cleared this and, sorry, and yes.
Hi, I'm sorry I was late. But you were talking about the cleanup collection. When you make your collection, you erased it. How did you, and then you were going to share it with them? Or can you share it with them and then clean it up? Or I'm sorry, I'm confused how you cleaned up the collection.
Sure. So when I got all of them in here, I think I had about 13 to start that all matched my criteria. I picked the 5 that I felt were comps for the listing that I was pitching. And then the rest of it, I selected all of them that were not matches, that were not comps for my listing, and I trashed them.
Okay.
Which are now.
So this is going to be the shared 5 is the only one that your clients are going to see.
Exactly. So when your client goes in, client facing, they're only seeing shared. They don't see unshared or trash. This is like backstage.
Okay. And then I have a quick question about collection, because I love doing collections for my clients, but I notice that it doesn't automatically update current. I mean, how current is my collection? Because
I don't have any issues. I mean, I've been at
don't?
Compass for over 4 years now, and probably like maybe like that first year, some things weren't feeding in all the time, but mine is
always
99.9% accurate.
You know what?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the CMA. That's something different. So
yeah, so a CMA that you make is going to be static. That doesn't have any active feed into it. When you set that up, you're just setting something up to be printed.
That's it. Okay. All right. Got it. Thank you.
So that's honestly, that's exactly, I'm happy you actually said that. That is exactly why I do collections versus just relying on that, because I'm doing all that work just to have something that's as good as February 27th. On March 15th, that might no longer be accurate.
Right. Right.
So why have to do the work twice, you know?
Yep. Got it. It's just
Okay.
most current. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So now we have all of our shared listings in here. All you have to do now is just go in and leave comments as to, just like you would, I mean, you could do it in a CMA. I always did it. I shouldn't say everybody does that, but this is where you really go in and you exercise or show off all your knowledge. So showed this house had wetlands in the back, or showed this house, kitchen was phenomenal. Showed this house, my buyers actually bid on it, but we lost in a bidding war. There were 20 offers on this house. Whatever that knowledge is, what I wouldn't do, for an example of a comment, is say 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, 1,700 square feet. Thanks, Kate. Great agent there. So I really like to show off a little bit here of like, this is okay, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, you know, you think that you know everything, you think you know how to price your house. Let me share information with you that you cannot find online. This is your chance to go and share all of that. And to me, I've gotten this question before, how many comments is too much? I don't think too many there's ever too many comments. What I would say is just give yourself the short version in the comment. Don't make like some massive paragraph, like a story, because you have to think when you're sharing this and you're presenting this, you're not going to want to, think of like presenting a deck. This is basically just like that. Have a few notes that will remind you of the sentence that you wanted to say about this, or the small tangent you wanted to go off on it, but don't make it so that you're like, oh my God, I feel like I need to read this off the paper. So make sure that they're short and sweet bullet points when you're leaving them in there. All right. So the next part of it is actually sharing it with your client. Let me see the chat 1 second. I like to share some important info from the private agent remarks from the MLS, like the offer date. Yes. Anything that was in the agent remarks, share that. Anything that you feel is kind of like insider info, put that in there. Okay, so when you go and actually share this, this is where I don't really care what you do. I personally don't share this with somebody ahead of time. I like to share this for the first time when I'm with the client. First and foremost, no one signed with me. No one's done anything. Why am I going to share all this information with you right off the bat? Let me go in and meet with you. I'll share it. I'll share it with you in person, and then I'll invite you into it. After that, doesn't mean the person still has to go with me, but I want it to have been explained from me first. You wouldn't probably go in and, you know, if we're in any other career, you wouldn't send your deck to everybody at the meeting ahead of time with all your notes in there. You would probably want to present it and then say, and, you know, my admin or whoever will circulate a copy of this for your note, for your reference later. Another thing is the dreaded technology issues. I don't want to start off on the wrong foot with someone over something as silly as they can't access the collection. When I'm in person with them, I can invite them into it at the end of the meeting, make sure that they're all squared away. And if they're running into a small issue, it's probably a lot easier for me to fix that for them when I'm in person than having them call me later saying, we can't open this, we don't know which email this went to, this is happening, this is happening. So I think it's much easier what I do, go in, present this, add them into it at the end of the meeting so they have a copy of it, and then you're done. Everybody's in it at the end of the meeting, everybody's on the same page. And also, okay, so we're good with that. Sorry, I forgot my punctuation in the way I was speaking. Next topic is also having this available to you, having your computer available to you, having the Compass platform available to you, and opening up with showing this. If you're somebody who's maybe not as comfortable explaining the tech, which I know can get a little bit, even though we all know it and use it, do you ever feel like in a pitch, someone asks you, so why is Compass so great? And you're like, blah, blah, blah. You completely stumble over your words. We know it's wonderful, but it's a little nerve-wracking there. You know, you're a little nervous, especially right now in the market. You maybe aren't getting as many listing calls as you want. You really want this to go well. And sometimes those nerves can get the best of us. What better way to show somebody your tech than doing a live demo with them, saying, oh, what makes Compass so great? Well, you know, I don't know if you've interviewed anybody else or if you've worked with anybody else in the past, but has anybody ever shared their, you know, their CMA or their comps like the way I just did with you? They're probably going to say no. Even if they interviewed another Compass agent, they're probably going to say no. There's not a lot of people who do this. So I think that's another really great benefit of this. Also, if they wanted to say, oh, can you show me something else in here? You have everything right there at your fingertips to be able to move through the platform, go through Business Tracker, show them how everything goes into one place in a Business Tracker folder, all at the, tip of your fingers right there. So for all those reasons, I feel like I'm on Shark Tank. For all those reasons, who wants to do collections for CMAs with me? That's the end of my pitch. Any questions?
I do. At this point, then you just hit the invite. Are you inviting the party that you set up here, who it was for initially, again? Or is it
Yes.
already embedded?
You have to go and invite them again. So if I wanted to go and invite Corinne, let me move this out of the way.
So the owner, the seller, you invite, right? Separately.
Or
Okay.
both of them, whoever the decision makers are. Yeah.
And the collaborator, if you have one, like a team.
Right. So I would add
maybe.
in, this is kind of a bad example because Corinne is acting as my client, but she'd also become a collaborator in here. So yes,
Would
you
you
would add in
normally,
a team
oh,
member.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Would you normally default to one's own email, like my email, to kind of practice that way, and then you could later remove it and then bring it to the client and then invite, so you feel you can see how it works and that sort of thing.
I would say great practice is to do that ahead of time. I wouldn't invite someone else into it just
Right.
in case something's being finicky and you feel like you need to start all over then after that. But I would definitely practice a few times beforehand so that
Yeah.
you're familiar with what the consumer's experience would be.
Okay.
I cannot tell you how many times my soon-to-be lovely husband has been a demo person on this. He's like, Kate, I got 19 collections going on from these Chirag calls. You gotta cut the emails. I'm like, sorry about that. They take you off of there. But it's great to have someone, you can have a friend,
Yeah.
sibling, partner, whoever that is, have them test it out and then just go right onto their computer. So you can really test out that experience and basically be your own demo on there. Okay, great. Anything else before I wrap up? Awesome. Thank you, guys. I hope this was helpful.
Thank you.
Any questions, send me an email, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.